I just want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues and thank you for the opportunity to come and present here today. I'll start off with the inefficiencies in the maintenance grant system, and then move on to student hardship and a couple of issues about the student registration charge, which I know you've received a letter from me with a copy of the accounts from UCD today, or part of the accounts from UCD. Just to give you some background information, UCD Students Union in early November, under the provisions of the Freedom of Information Act, requested from every local authority in the country to tell us how many grants they received last year, so how many applications, excuse me, and what the total administration cost of administering the grants, so things like salaries, computing facilities, government stamp duty on the 3 checks they have to write. We haven't got all of them back, but I hope to be in a position by Monday to pass all the members of the committee with a detailed proposal and a detailed outline of what every county, what every local authority in the country has come back to us with. But just to give you a flavour, in Westmeath last year they received 647 requests for a third level maintenance grant. Of that, 551 of them were successful, so we have about an 85% success rate. The total administration cost there was €45,620, so that gives us a cost of about €71 for processing each individual application form. Now, €70 sounds like an awful lot of money to process one grant application, but that's at the very lower end of the scale. To give you something from the higher end of the scale, we have North Tipperary County Council, 526 grant applications received, total administration cost €254,716, giving a total cost of €485 per application. So what North Tipperary County Council have told us is that it costs them €485 to process every single application. And this is just showing the inefficiencies in the current student grant system. As I said previously, I hope to have all the FOI requests back by the end of the week, and I'll have prepared a detailed document for the members of the committee on Monday, which I'll circulate. Then just moving on to student hardship. In UCD, the Student Assistance Fund has a pot of money of about €128,000. It's been the same pot of money for the last number of years. Last year, the Student Assistance Fund in the whole year received 200 applications. Now, the Student Assistance Fund is slightly different from the Student Welfare Fund. The Student Welfare Fund deals with unexpected issues, so things like bereavements or any issue that's arisen that wasn't foreseen. The Student Assistance Fund deals with foreseen difficulties and severe financial difficulties. So last year there was 200 applications to that €128,000 pot of money in the entire year. This year so far, I checked just before I left the office, we've received 420 applications. So out of that €128,000, each person will only receive about €300 or €400. Now these are people with their P21s and their P45s who can prove that both they and their family are in severe financial difficulties, but yet we're only able to give them €400. Excuse me. Most of these people are still waiting on a grant application. As Hugh alluded to earlier, I had a student in my office last week who told me that they'd been waiting 14 weeks, not only not to receive their grant, but to hear back on whether their grant was, whether they're even going to get a grant or not. So 14 weeks to wait for their grant to be processed. This student hadn't been able to pay their student registration charge. They had no access to the library in UCD, so they're at a severe disadvantage to their peers throughout the class. This is a first art student who's not from Dublin, had to move away from home, couldn't afford to pay rent and was being threatened to be evicted. Not only that, as I said previously, they couldn't use the library. The student couldn't afford a simple thing like a bus ticket to get to UCD. This is shocking. In the year 2009, where I have a student who comes into my office and tells me I can't afford a bus ticket to get to UCD because my grant application hasn't even been processed yet. Now, I've already demonstrated the severe inefficiencies in the grant application and the higher level maintenance grant system. My colleagues have outlined how we propose to fix that. Just moving on to the student registration charge. At this point, I think all of you have a document from me, a letter and some draft accounts from UCD. The student services charge rose by 67% last year, so from €900 to €1,500, €600. From the UCD accounts, you can see that in the year 2008-2009, UCD had approximately €517 to spend on student services per student. A year later, we have a €600 increase in the student services charge, and UCD now has €503 to spend per student on student services. This is because in the year 2002, the year 2008 and the year 2009, as the student services charge was risen, there was a huge decrease in the core grant. So every year when the student services charge goes up, UCD, like all the other universities and the Institutes of Technology, get a letter from the HEA. The first of these was in 2002, which said The Minister for Education and Science has given the universities and institutes of technologies permission to raise the student services charge to a maximum of €1,500. However, in line with this, the core grant will be cut by a similar amount in order to secure savings to the Exchequer this year and in subsequent years. So any myth we have that this €1,500 is going to student services is absolutely a fantasy. If we had 1,500 students at the coalface are coming into my office, and offices around the country with various different students' unions asking why, if I've paid €600 more this year in a student services charge, why do I now have to pay an additional fee to see the doctor? Why are student services being cut back? The reality is it's not a student services charge anymore. Most of the money is going back to, so 2/3 of the money is going back to the Exchequer by way of savings to be secured in this year and subsequent years. I'm going to leave it at that, but just to tell you, and I hope the members of the committee can note this going back to the various constituencies, things are very tough for third-level students at the moment. Hundreds of students are still waiting on grants. Where students are really struggling at the minute. I even had a student earlier on the year who told me they couldn't afford to eat that week because they hadn't received their grants yet. As I said earlier, in the year 2009 and with the dawn of the Celtic Tiger, we all thought all these issues were in the past, but realistically they're back and they're really at the coalface of what I deal with every day and my colleagues deal with right around the country. Thank you.